Thank you, Honorable Ruto. I'd like us to move to the next topic of discussion here tonight, and that is constitution and governance. 13 years since the adoption of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, citizens continue to complain about non-effective implementation and a weak culture of constitutionalism. Honorable Ruto, which part of the Constitution of Kenya do you think has not been implemented with fidelity, and why?
I think we should sort out the two-third gender rule. I think we owe it to the people of Kenya, and especially to the women of Kenya, that this part of the Constitution is implemented. I believe that we need to sort out certain matters to do with devolution, like the one I have said, the Equalization Fund. I think it was wrongly put under national government. It should go to the counties. I also believe that there are functions that should not have been made contingent or shared functions between the national government and the county government. Regional authorities, for example. Those are functions that we should either agree to be managed by counties jointly or to be subsumed into county governments. If it is Kerio Valley, how do we split it so that the counties in the Kerio Valley we have a Kerio Valley Development Authority. Should that be managed by the national government? I don't think so. I think it should be managed by the counties in the Kerio Valley. So these are some of the functions that I think we need to clarify. We need to complete the implementation of the Constitution. I have raised, for example, the matter of the Judiciary Fund. I think we have wasted too much time in implementing the Judiciary Fund. After I pushed so hard, this year, 1st of July, the Judiciary Fund was operationalized because I have been talking about it for the last year and a half. So these are some of the sections that I believe that we should be able to conclude the implementation of the Constitution.
Let's go back to the two-thirds gender principle. In your view, why did we fail in terms of getting this since 2010?
I think, speaking for myself, I have made a commitment, and I know it's doable, to make sure the two-third gender rule is realized. There are different proposals. There are proposals that require constitutional change. There are some that do not require constitutional change. And I have assembled a team of very competent constitutional lawyers to look at how we can have a framework in 90 days of our government, and within 1 year, make sure it is implemented. And it's not necessarily for purposes of the women of Kenya. It is for the benefit of everybody. The fact that we do not have as many women leaders is actually a negative for us. There is something we are losing. The women leadership component that is not in our arithmetic is actually taking away from us. I believe that having women leaders would actually enrich our governance and our leadership as a nation. And that's why, for example, when these matters came up in the BBI discussion, I vehemently opposed the fact that women were being removed from the National Assembly, where the substantive financial issues are being decided, and they were being relegated to the Senate. So I was wondering how a right that had been given to the women of Kenya in the National Assembly could be withdrawn, and they are hoarded into the Senate. So that is my commitment to the women of Kenya.
Also, on the Judiciary Fund that you've mentioned, you said you will operationalize it. But the judiciary is, by dint of the Constitution of Kenya, independent. So what is this exactly that you will do that operationalizes this fund?
You see, independence can be undermined by financial resources. The reason why the judiciary has been raising this issue over and over is because, much as they have their independence, their financial requirements are still subject to other pieces of legislation, which is against the Constitution. The Judiciary Fund is supposed to draw resources directly from the Consolidated Fund. Once approved by Parliament, that should be it. And in fact, because of the push that I have had on the Judiciary Fund for the last 1.5 years, it was actually operationalized in June.
So you do have some influence, Honorable Ruto, within this government.
If you look at, I have been pushing in the public, because that's what I said. When I said I'm going to set up the Judiciary Fund, I think somebody decided to say, this fellow is pushing too hard. Let us implement this Judiciary Fund so that he loses this card. He cannot take it to the people of Kenya.
So you do have some influence.
We have achieved it anyway.
So you have some influence, Honorable Ruto? Because previously, in this conversation...
Of course I have influence.
But in this conversation previously, you have said there's limits to what the Deputy President can do.
I have influence nationally on pushing agendas. I may not have...
Such as disclosure of SGR
as Deputy President. I didn't push the Judiciary Fund as Deputy President. I pushed it as a leader.
Why couldn't you do that then for a number of the other issues that we have discussed here tonight that you have said you did not have influence over?
I have pushed back, for example, on the issue of the BBI. I pushed back heavily. And I deployed a lot of influence. And actually, by God's grace, we managed to stall it. Our competitors are saying they are going to go back to it immediately after the election. But I think it was a complete waste of resources, and it was actually not made in good faith, because a constitutional change that seeks to undermine the independence of the judiciary is a dangerous constitutional change. A constitutional change that seeks to subsume the executive and the legislature and take us back to where we were in the Nyayo days is actually taking us back, not taking us forward. And that is why I made my position very clear in the public domain.
Honorable Ruto, do you believe in the independence of the judiciary?
Pardon?
Do you believe in the independence of the judiciary?
I don't know how to answer you. In fact, if there is one person who has fought for the independence of the judiciary, it is William Ruto. I am the only person with a few of my friends who stood up to the so-called ombudsman that was supposed to be injected into the judiciary, appointed by the executive to supervise the judiciary, something I totally disagree with.
You talk about you being the biggest defender. However, the administration which you have served since 2013 has been cited several times for disobeying court orders. Let me give you one example, or a few. Former Air Force commander waiting for 6 years to be restored to his rank and given 71 million shillings compensation. NYS service official injured in the line of duty, yet to receive 3.6 million shillings by the courts. There is a number of those, including the matter involving the swearing in of judges. This is an administration in which you sit. In fact, former Chief Justice David Maraga has often lamented the executive's disregard of court orders. You are the second in command of the executive and of the Republic of Kenya. What are your thoughts then around the independence of the judiciary, and why have there been so many court orders disobeyed under your watch as Deputy President?
Two things. I am an ardent believer in the independence of the judiciary. When the judiciary issued a ruling nullifying our election, I went out of my way to persuade my boss for us to go back and do the election again. Because much as we criticized that judgment, because we believed that we had won that election fair and square, but because of our commitment and belief in the judiciary, we still obeyed the dictates of the judiciary. That's one. You have raised incidences where, of course, judgments have been entered against government and they have not been sorted out. And I quite agree. And in fact, that was one area we identified even as we developed our manifesto. If you look at our manifesto, we have squarely identified that as an issue, that we cannot continue this situation where government leads in disobeying orders.
Honorable Ruto, yes, that's indeed a good matter for me to interject. Just hang on one second, Honorable Ruto. Yet you have sat in that administration which has defied court orders. We haven't heard you raise issue on that. And in fact, now that you brought up the 2017 Supreme Court petition, you were rather unhappy with the Supreme Court judges. You called them those 6 people. You called them wakora. Does that demonstrate respect for the judiciary?
In fact, I had occasion to have a one-on-one with Maraga. And I told Maraga an incident when I first came into Parliament. I met Paul Muite, a seasoned lawyer and a legislator, and he told me this, which has really stuck in my mind. He told me, young man, when I first became a member of Parliament in 1997, 98 actually. So he told me, when you support a government, it also includes criticizing that government when it goes wrong. So part of supporting a system is pointing out when you think they are not doing the right thing.
Criticizing them is one thing, Honorable Ruto, but calling them wakora, which means conmen, do you believe that the Supreme Court judges of 2017 were con men and women?
I would want to understand in what context that wakora thing you have mentioned, because I have, if there is any respect for the judiciary, is to comply with the decision of the court. Did we comply with the decision of the court? Yes. We went back to the election.
But you haven't in many of the other court orders that we have cited here tonight.
We went back to the election. And the admission that the fact that there are so many outstanding issues and the fact that I have singled them out and they are part of what I intend to sort out is actually halfway the solution. I don't think if you look at the manifesto of our competitors, they have recognized that as an issue. I have recognized that as an issue because I believe in the independence of the judiciary. I believe government should lead from the front in obeying court orders. And in fact, we have said in our manifesto, if you read it clearly, it says we will look at all judgments that have been entered against government. And we will develop a mechanism to make sure that within 1 year, we comply with all judgments entered against government so that even as we drive the country to obey court orders, we lead as government from the front.
Let's talk about something else, Mr. Deputy.